So what I'm going to do is go through a short introduction, talk about our industry dilemma and challenge, go through a market update, some of our system overview and differentiators, our sales strategy, our current status, and go through the outlook and just summarize. So as part of my introduction, I'm going to this is an update for all customers and investors and anybody else who would like to learn about our product and our company. There will be polling questions from time to time, which one is up right now. Those will help us to understand who's out there today and also help us better to plan future events. Hopefully next time the computers will be working the way they're supposed to be working. At the end of the presentation, there will be a set of survey questions that we'll also send out to you that'll help us to give us guidance for future webinars. So let's talk about the industry dilemma. I mean, many of you know this here who have been involved with the company. Microbial contamination has grown in the past few years, mostly because of the globalization of food transport and the lack of common regulations worldwide. Typically, it takes about 24 to 72 hours to do a test for contamination. And before they do any kind of recall, they actually do a second test and sometimes even a third. So that's why it takes as long as 2 to 3 weeks before recall is even announced. Test costs range anywhere from the rapid tests of $2 up to $150 when they have a microbiologist who actually takes a culture, looks at it under a microscope, and makes an analysis. And because of the globalization, what we're seeing is new strains of bacteria present for which many of our antibiotics are resistant. They're resistant to many of our antibiotics, which are also causing some havoc. Just to give you some statistics, on an annual basis, the CDC reports that 76 million illnesses occur. With that, 325,000 hospitalizations and 5,000 deaths. Much of that bacteria contamination is caused by these three bugs, Listeria, E. coli, and Salmonella. The rest of them are caused either by the fact they couldn't identify the pathogen or it's not in our database. So let's see how food contamination has been rising over the years. This is the one probably most of you remember, back when they closed the Tops Meat Company, where 55 million pounds of beef were recalled. Last, in 2008, another 143 million pounds of beef were recalled. And then just most recently, 1 million pounds from Valley Meat for frozen beef patties. And E. coli is primarily always linked to beef contamination. Salmonella, on the other hand, is primarily linked to poultry and produce contamination. The one you probably remember the most is this one that was just announced a few months ago with 550 million eggs being recalled. Again, this is just a continuous process. I actually subscribe to services that give me contamination events as they occur, and these ones that I'm showing here are only the ones that really hit the radar screen. There are actually contamination events that occur on a daily basis someplace. Listeria is probably the most universal contaminant, and obviously the most lethal as well. Of the 5,000 deaths that are recording annually, Listeria can account anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 of those. So just today this happened. This caught my attention. I felt compelled to show it. Premier Foods is Britain's largest producer. Estimated 99% of the UK households buying their products and 47.2 million people consuming their food. What happened is this is a mouse that was actually put into their bread. A father making sandwiches found it, and the firm later admitted that it failed to ensure all their stages of food production, which were protected against contamination. So, we have problems, but this one is about as bad as it can get. What's being done from a food safety business? Global Analytics Industry reports that the compound annual growth rate has been increasing since 2008, will reach about an $11.5 billion market by 2015. And as you see here, Asia is actually growing at a higher rate, so they're starting to pay more attention to it. And the meat industry is growing at a higher rate for the same reason. I spoke to you a little bit earlier about globalization of food, and it's no wonder why we're having some trouble. Look at this statistic in terms of produce that's imported. Less than 0.5%, less than 0.25% of that is tested. And look at this statistic for imported shrimp that was tested, or not tested, probably is a better way to say that, in 2006. So what are we trying to do? The FDA is trying to add more regulations. There's a new food bill that's been in Congress for a few months. It will It'll improve things. It is not going to be anything that's going to solve all our problems. There's not enough money to do that or time. And we don't even know when this bill is going to come in. So the industry is trying to help. These rapid test methods, for which we are one of them, are definitely cheaper. They're faster. They're rising in terms of usage, but still only represent about a quarter of all the testing that is done. There are a number of companies developing rapid test systems, and cost obviously is an issue, and this is where we think we have a big differentiator, as I'll show you in a future slide. The other thing we feel is that's good about our technology is that we can get down below the species level to what is called the strain level. Some of you may have seen the Cargill recall of 8,500 pounds of beef that was later determined to be caused by E. coli O26. Well, E. coli is the genus species and O26 is the strain. And that brings up a whole different topic in terms of why people want to get to this level. Because strains like O26, many people think should be considered adulterants. In other words, they are very harmful to the environment, can cause death, and they have shown to cause death, and should be tested on a more routine basis. Presently, O26 and other non-adulterants are only tested by choice. There's no regulation to do so. So here's our system. Some of our big advantages here is we can do a test 5 minutes after incubation, have a very low operating cost of 10 cents. Environmental is very safe. We don't use any reagents or chemicals. And we don't require the operator to do any sort of interpretation. Our system tells them when they have a problem. And of course, we are AOAC RI certified, which enables us to sell into the food industry. So how does this work? Well, basically you have a sample vial that's here. A laser beam goes through the sample vial, and as it intersects a bacteria, it creates a scattering pattern that's created by these photodiodes that surround the sample vial. There's 35 of those, and those gather the information, and that's what creates what we call the scattering pattern. So when we are in our lab, what we actually do is we run roughly 100,000 bugs of the same species through our machine, trying to collect all the different scattering patterns depending upon the size, shape, orientation, and morphology of the bug, and we put that in a database. During an ID, what we do is compare what's in the sample vial to what's in our database. So when you compare us against conventional methods, here's what's done by a standard microbiologist. It's very high cost capital because you got to have a full lab to it. Cost per test, as I showed you before, can be very high, $150 upwards. And it takes a while. These are probably the cheapest rapid test systems you can get, conventional amino assays, but they have a low accuracy compared to others. PCR systems are probably the ones that are most known in the industry today. They cost anywhere from $35,000 to $150,000 to purchase, and their cost per test is around $6 at the low end to $50 at the high end. We are at 10 cents per test, and our machine will retail for just under $30,000. So when you look at our value proposition with our low test cost, based upon over 1 billion tests done per year, and this was as of 2007, that number has actually increased. And this is, by the way, just for rapid testing. So just with our system versus other rapid testers, we can save the industry over $3 billion. And that's why we make this claim that we can save thousands of lives, because we're quicker and tens of millions of testing dollars. The applications that we are targeting are the food market, and the main reason why we're targeting that is because of the demand, if you will, for that, as well as the preparation we've done to enter it. We recognize this to be a large problem and feel as though it's good to get our traction with an industry that is hungry for our solution, and then we'll venture off into diagnostic laboratories as well as pharmaceuticals, semiconductor, hospitals, and water utilities. To move into these other two markets here will require us to get FDA 510K certification, which will take about a year and $100,000. So our sales strategy is to continue to build direct and distributor sales channels. We have about 10 distributors worldwide and are increasing that as we find qualified distributors. We also align with some key contract labs, and we do that for a couple of reasons. One, they provide for us valuable information as to how our system, the ease of use of our system, what sort of results we're getting for it, how good is it, and also provides a significant cost reduction for the contract labs as well as an increased production. They can get more throughput from our machine. We are in the process of aligning with leaders around the world that already have worldwide distribution in our target markets. And the reason why we do that, because we recognize that's a faster way to get to market to increase our sales rather than to try to grow the organization organically. And we'll be offering complementary products to what they have. We see our system primarily as a confirmation unit in the beginning, and as it gets more accepted in the market, will become more into mainstream. The pricing models that we're offering, we're trying to be as diverse as we can, offering an outright purchase and a lease model, as well as a cost per test that's based on a minimum amount of tests per month. Currently, as most of you may know, we are AOAC RI certified Listeria and have plans to add E. coli and Salmonella in early 2011. Our contract manager for OSI Systems, which is a billion-dollar corporation having facilities here in California as well as in India and Malaysia, will begin production in late 2010. They are a good partner for us because as we grow in volume, they can relocate the production line to one of their low-labor sites and enable us to either become more competitive or more profitable, and hopefully both. With the vast amount of food contamination events in the last couple of months, we have received a number of product information and requests for quotations, which helps us better believe that our forecast is pretty close to accurate. Of course, we're always going to be looking for further funding that will help us make a higher presence in the industry, and I'm going to talk about that next. So we've been incorporated since '78, and we did an IPO in 1987. We reorganized in 2005, and during that reorganization, we divested ourselves of the businesses that were first started with the company, which was a water purification business. And we decided to stay with this business because we felt it had a much larger market and much more promise in the industry. We have invested quite a bit of money in it to date, and we're now looking to raise about another $2.5 million. And that's primarily to expand our inventory, build the infrastructure, and launch our marketing campaign. We're working with 3 investment bankers, and as you saw in our press release this morning, one of them has already come through. We expect to have similar investments from this investor and others over the next several months. Our operational key goals, actually I said this already, production startup is by year end. Certification of those other 2 bugs, Salmonella and E. coli. And by the way, what our goal is to have it be a one-click push or one-button push to determine whether the sample was either E. coli, Salmonella, or Listeria. Our goal is to secure 25 production orders for 25 production systems by year end that we would deliver in first quarter, and to initiate the R&D program that gets us to the bacterial strain level for E. coli and Salmonella. Those seem to be the 2 that have the highest amount of strain pathogens that are of interest, and to start that program in early 2011. So in summarizing, our funding, production, and marketing objectives are converging. We think 2011 is going to be an excellent year for us. The worldwide safety concerns are growing, and we feel that we have a product that can make a significant contribution to the reduction of that widespread food contamination. And of course, we feel as though our product will enable industry to save, enable our world to save thousands of lives, and our industry to save tens of billions of dollars. So with that, I will open the session to questions and answers.